It's time to learn some more about intermolecular forces. Hi there, I'm Jeremy Krug and welcome to my AP Chemistry and General Chemistry course. This channel has the entire AP Chemistry course on it, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Now in the last video, we learned about London dispersion forces and dipole-dipole forces. In this video, we're looking at a very special type of dipole-dipole force. And to help us visualize what's going on here, let's imagine a molecule of water. So here's a typical molecule of water that we've had to draw many times in this course already. It's got that nice 105-degree angle. It's a bent structure. And we've learned that since oxygen is a very highly electronegative atom, this is a very polar molecule. So we can draw the charge differentials here on this structure. We can say that the hydrogens up here have that partial positive charge. That's why we have the delta positives up here. And then the electronegative oxygen atom makes this side down here very negative. So that's why I have the delta negative down here. Well, as we learned in the last video, this looks like a dipole-dipole force, doesn't it? If we have a neighboring water molecule, well, we can take a look at this and we can see that there's going to be an attraction. The negative side of this molecule is going to have a very strong attraction to the positive side of its neighboring molecule. So I can draw a little dotted line here and say that we're going to have a dipole-dipole force there, aren't we? So that's something that we already learned in the last video. However, in addition to calling it just dipole-dipole, there is something special about this molecule, about water, and other molecules that are like it. And that has to do with the size of these atoms. Now, hydrogen, as I think we know, is a very, very tiny atom. It's really the tiniest atom that can appear in chemical compounds. And as a result, it can allow a neighboring molecule's oxygen atom to move in very, very close to it. And guess what? Oxygen is not just electronegative, it's also a very small atom, which allows that neighboring hydrogen atom from that next molecule to get very close as well. And so as a result, we can say that the dipole-dipole force between water molecules is extremely strong. Remember, Coulomb's law says it's not just the charge differential that helps the force to be stronger, it's also the distance. And so the closer that these molecules are to each other, the stronger the force is. And so this particular dipole-dipole force that we saw here is extremely strong, very strong. And that's why we give it a special name. We call this a hydrogen bond. Now, a hydrogen bond, very simply defined, is just a very strong type of dipole-dipole force that's found in molecules that contain this oxygen-hydrogen bond, this nitrogen-hydrogen bond, or the fluorine-hydrogen bond. And so if you have those bonds in a molecule, it's safe to say that there's going to be hydrogen bonding taking place there. Now, normally, hydrogen bonds are stronger than London dispersion or the simple dipole-dipole forces that we talked about in the last video. Now, this also helps us to explain why if you have a polar molecule that has a fluorine, an oxygen, or nitrogen, these are usually going to dissolve into water. And that's because those molecules can hydrogen bond with water itself. And we'll see an example of that here coming up in this video. So let's take a look at this question here, and it says, which of these molecules exhibits hydrogen bonding? So once again, in order for it to have hydrogen bonding, it has to have one of these three up here. And as we can see, there's only one of these molecules that's going to have that. It's going to have to be that NH3. And as a result, we can say that its intermolecular force is probably going to be a whole lot stronger than the NO2 would most likely be. Now here's another question that has to do with the forces here. Let's say that a chemistry student observes that ammonia, NH3 gas, readily dissolves in water. pH3 does not. Explain this phenomenon in terms of intermolecular forces. Now looking at the structures of these, you'd think, well, hang on, this is a polar molecule, and that's a polar molecule, so why don't they both dissolve in water? Well, it has to do with hydrogen bonding. So here's the answer. Ammonia, NH3, can actually hydrogen bond with water itself because its central nitrogen atom is both very small and very electronegative. The pH3 only has relatively weak attractions to water, so it can't hydrogen bond to water because the phosphorus atom is larger and it's not nearly as electronegative as that nitrogen is. So let's take a look at another example here. Let's try to rank these compounds in order of increasing boiling point. So once again, we're going to take a look at the lowest boiling point first. That would have to be something that's only got London dispersion forces and nothing else. That means it's a perfectly nonpolar molecule. And I would say that carbon dioxide, we've drawn that structure many times before, and carbon dioxide has a structure that looks like this. It is a nonpolar molecule, and so as a result, nonpolar molecules are going to have only LDF, London dispersion forces, and so they're going to have the lowest boiling points usually. Now how about the next one? Well, nitrogen dioxide would be the next. Like we said in the last video, anything with nitrogen and oxygen is probably going to be a polar molecule. So it's got to have dipole-dipole forces in addition to those London dispersion forces. So its boiling point is going to be a little bit higher. On the other hand, water is not just London dispersion and not just a plain old dipole-dipole. It's got hydrogen bonding. So it's going to have the highest boiling point of all. And so this is the order that we can see here. And by the way, if we look at the actual boiling points, we can find that the actual laboratory information is confirmed when we look at that, not just through our predictions. So this is actually correct. Now, when we're talking about these forces, there's one last force that we really need to talk about. Sometimes we forget about this force, but it is an important one, and these are ionic forces. And when we look at an ionic compound, like let's say magnesium oxide, this is what we see. Or this is not actually what we see, but this is a nice model that helps us to understand what we see. Now, these ions, the magnesium ions and the oxide ions, they stick together because of electrostatic forces. That means that the positive attracts the negative. And that's an extremely strong force in nature. In fact, ionic forces, generally speaking, are the strongest. They're stronger than these hydrogen bonds we've talked about, a lot stronger than just plain old dipole-dipole or LDFs, London dispersion forces. So generally speaking, ionic compounds are going to have by far the highest melting points and the highest boiling points. So if we're going to review all of these intermolecular forces, we can say that ionic forces are the strongest. And if you have two ionic forces, then you might want to go back to lesson 8 and think about how we rank those. The charge differential, like a +2 -2, will be stronger than a +1 -1. And then, of course, ionic size is after that. Hydrogen bonds are, generally speaking, the second strongest type of force there. We're going to have, you got to have an HF, an HO, or an HN to have hydrogen bonding. Now, dipole-dipole forces are the second weakest. That's when you have polar molecules. And we know how to determine that from drawing molecular structures. And then, generally speaking, the weakest intermolecular forces of all are London dispersion forces. And these are the ones that are most dominant in nonpolar molecules, although everything has London dispersion forces. Oh, and by the way, if you have to break the tie, remember that the one that has more electrons is more polarizable. And so that would have stronger forces and a higher boiling point or melting point. So those are the four main types that you really need to know about for the AP chemistry exam. There are some others, but these are the four main ones that you really need to know about. So for these compounds, so let's do some practice here. Let's state which type of forces are going to be present. So we'll start with HNO3. So that looks like our nitric acid that we've dealt with before, our hydrogen nitrate compound. Now, remember, everything has London dispersion forces. You got to start with that, okay? It also has hydrogen bonding because it has the hydrogen in there, and that hydrogen is bonded to the nitrogen. And so, yeah, that has hydrogen bonding in it. So that's how you determine it. What about barium sulfate? We look at that and say, there's a ion, a cation, and an anion. So it's ionic forces. But don't forget LDF. Everything has London dispersion forces. So we've got to include that as well. How about CH4 methane? Well, if we draw it out, we might know just by looking at the formula that it's nonpolar, but we could draw it out like we've done many times before. And here's the structure, a perfectly nonpolar molecule. So that means it's only London dispersion forces for that one. How about nitrogen trifluoride? I think we've drawn this one before, but nitrogen trifluoride has, I'll just omit the terminal structures on the fluorine, but this is the basic idea of it there. We have a polar molecule, and it's not, this is not hydrogen bonding, but it is a dipole-dipole force along with London dispersion forces. So we can determine the type of intermolecular forces in just about any compound if we draw it out and we think about the forces that are there. Let's do one more example here. Let's actually rank each of those compounds in order of increasing a boiling point. So we've already determined which type of forces there are. Can we go from lowest boiling point to highest? I think we can we? Because we know that whatever has just LDF is going to be the lowest, so that's CH4, that's the lowest. And then the second weakest would be just dipole-dipole, right? So that's nitrogen trifluoride, that's the second lowest. And then hydrogen bonding is the second highest. That's a pretty strong one, so HNO3. And then the highest of them all would have to be the ionic compound, so that would be barium sulfate. And so here we have a fairly simple way to determine the intermolecular forces in any compound, as well as to rank them in their boiling point or their melting point based upon those intermolecular forces. I hope you learned something in my video. If you learned something from this video, please be so kind as to hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. That way YouTube shares my video with other chemistry students as well. I'm Jeremy Krug. I've been teaching chemistry for over 20 years, and I want you to get a 5 on your AP exam and to make an A in your class. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again where we can learn some more chemistry together.